Hello, everyone. Thank you for choosing Andrew Peters. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and watch to the end of the video to stay up to date on your stimulus checks. Today we are talking about the $1,200 stimulus check update and $600 unemployment benefits that may come from a new bill. A new coronavirus stimulus bill may have to wait until 2021, and it may not include a second $1,200 check nor federal aid to keep police officers, healthcare workers and teachers on state and municipal payrolls. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said Friday that the Senate likely would take up legislation at the beginning of next year, but nowhere near the package of around $2 trillion that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was negotiating with the White House. "We probably need to do another package," McConnell is saying. "I think that will be something we'll need to do right at the beginning of the year, targeted particularly at small businesses that are struggling and hospitals that are now dealing with a second wave of the coronavirus. And of course, the challenges for education, both K-12 and colleges." President Donald Trump said he didn't want to wait another 2 months. "We will have a tremendous stimulus package immediately after the election," he told reporters Thursday at the White House. While the White House has endorsed another $1,200 stimulus check, neither Trump nor McConnell have been willing to accede to House Democratic demands for hundreds of billions of dollars in federal aid to help cash-strapped states and localities avoid layoffs of public employees. "They risked their lives to save lives, and now many of them will lose their jobs," Pelosi said. That helps scuttle pre-election negotiations between Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and will prevent passage of any stimulus bill as long as Democrats control the House, which they are favored to continue doing for the next 2 years. The president does not want to recognize that the state and local government is playing a very big role in ministering to the needs of those who are sick as well as the revenue they have lost because of the coronavirus, Pelosi said. As for the chances of passing a stimulus bill when Congress returns for a lame duck session after Election Day, Pelosi said that's dependent on Senate Republicans willing to make a deal. McConnell refused to take up either of the House Democratic bills passed in May and September, and instead offered a slimmed-down measure that did not include stimulus checks nor state and local aid but protect businesses against lawsuits if their customers or employers were infected by the coronavirus, and did provide additional taxpayer subsidies for religious and other private schools. Neither had enough support to reach the Senate floor for debate. "It depends on how much of a rehabilitation tour the Republicans want to take," Pelosi said. "Certainly, we'll have something at the start of the new presidency, but we don't want to have to wait that long, because people have needs." Congress left Washington and won't be back until after Tuesday's election despite record numbers of new infections and the threat of fresh winter economic restrictions hitting the economy and Americans' wallets. While lawmakers will not send relief before the election, Pelosi signaled to Mnuchin that she wants to continue discussions after the country votes. "Your responses are critical for our negotiations to continue," the speaker wrote. The president's words that, after the election, we will get the best stimulus package you have ever seen, only have meaning if he can get Mitch McConnell to take his hand off the pause button and get the Senate Republican chairman moving toward agreement with their House counterparts. Pelosi says she is optimistic deal can be reached before election despite continuing stalemate. Mnuchin responded to Pelosi on Thursday afternoon, saying the speaker sent the letter to my office at midnight and simultaneously released it to the press. "I can unfortunately only conclude that it was a political stunt." The Treasury Secretary wrote that he has dedicated endless hours to trying to reach a compromise but argued the Democrat has not made the same effort to find common ground. He said that, contrary to Pelosi's comments, the White House did accept Democrats' proposal on COVID-19 testing and offered reasonable compromise positions on the range of other topics Pelosi highlighted. He criticized the Democratic leader's opposition to passing standalone bills related to airline payroll relief, small business loans or direct payments to individuals. "Your all-or-none approach is hurting hardworking Americans who need help now," he concluded. In response to Mnuchin's letter, Pelosi spokesman Drew Hamill insisted the White House has not lived up to Secretary Mnuchin's promise to accept Democrats' language to crush the virus. He said Democrats were still waiting for meaningful responses on the topics Pelosi cited. "These responses are needed so that talks can advance to deliver coronavirus relief as soon as possible. It is disappointing that the White House wasted time on this letter instead of meaningful responses to meet the needs of the American people," Hamill said. The Trump administration most recently offered a roughly $1.9 trillion package to Democrats. As the process became more bitter Thursday ahead of the election, it was unclear how the sides would come to a compromise that could pass both the Democratic-held House and GOP-controlled Senate in the coming weeks. During months of failed efforts to reach another stimulus agreement, Democrats and Republicans have cited a fundamental dispute over what the federal government needs to do to lift an economy and healthcare system battered by the virus. House Democrats last passed a $2.2 trillion package this month. Senate Republicans tried to approve a $500 billion bill, but Democrats blocked it. The third quarter GDP report released Thursday may only widen the gulf between the parties. The Trump presidential campaign and congressional Republicans swiftly touted the record 33.1% growth rate that came as states loosened public health restrictions. The spike followed a worst-ever plunge of 31.4% in the second quarter, losses the economy has not fully recovered. Initial jobless claims also fell last week to their lowest level since March, but the total of 751,000 still exceeds any week before the pandemic hit. Republican policies have given us a strong foundation. Together, we're moving forward, Senator John Barrasso, a Wyoming Republican and the third-ranking member of his party, said in a statement Thursday. Senate Republicans have three priorities: getting people back to work, getting kids back to school safely, and putting the disease behind us. That's our focus as we fight the virus. These two issues are holding up the next round of stimulus checks. Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer cited the GDP report both as evidence that earlier federal stimulus worked and that Congress needs to send more relief. These numbers mask the reality that 23 million Americans remain on unemployment and tens of thousands of small businesses have already gone under, the New York Democrats said in a statement. Our nation still has a long way to go before we overcome this public health crisis and our economy fully recovers. Much more needs to be done. Pelosi told reporters Thursday that the CARES Act relief bill passed earlier this year deserves credit for injecting resources into the economy. But she added that, if we don't pass a recovery bill, a COVID-19 bill, we will face dire circumstances, as well. She said she still hopes to strike a stimulus agreement before the winners of next week's presidential and congressional elections take office in January. McConnell on Monday responded to criticism that Republicans rushed to confirm Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett before the election without passing coronavirus aid. He said that, we have been working on coronavirus relief. While Congress fails to send more aid to Americans, polls show voters broadly want additional relief as millions still struggle to make ends meet during the downturn. A University of Texas Dallas poll taken over 2 weeks this month found 42% of voters nationally consider coronavirus stimulus their top legislative priority. Unfortunately, the Speaker has not been able to agree to anything remotely reasonable. We can do two things at once, and we were trying to do two things at once, he said. The election outcome could shape whether negotiators can, or even want to, reach a stimulus deal in the months before the next president and Congress take office in January. Thank you for my video. Make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I will be seeing you next time.